Sweet, sweet nostalgia. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking That 90s Show, the brand new series, a sequel series to a show that we know and love on Netflix. We're going to talk about it. I've seen every episode of season 1, but the question is it good? Does it live up to the hype of That 70s Show? It feels like an impossible task. Let's talk about it. It's 1995, and Leia Forman, daughter of Eric and Donna, is visiting her grandparents for the summer, where she bonds with a new generation of Point Place kids under the watchful eye of Kitty and the stern glare of Red. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll never dies, it just changes clothes. The rating for That 90s Show is TV-14, with a little bit of sexual content, cursing, language, about what you get from That 70s Show, except this time I would say it's aimed for a bit of a younger audience than That 70s Show, and no one's come out and said that, but I watched this series and I compare it, and we're going to play the comparison game, right? It's a sequel series, to what we originally got and how they weren't afraid of pushing it in certain ways, talking about more adult things. And I understand they were supposed to be a certain age in That 70s Show, but let's face it, these are way younger actors, so it's going to be pushed to a younger audience, even though those things are still present in this show, absolutely. And it's the 90s. We're playing on a lot of 90s tropes. We get a lot of 90s information. Sometimes it goes in one ear and out the other. You don't understand the reference as much. But as someone who kind of grew up in the 90s, mostly the early 2000s, but I was born in the mid-90s, I understand some of the references, and I think back to shows like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and really shows that I grew up with that would make similar references to what they're making here, right? Like there's a joke about the Menendez brothers, and, you know, kids today, they're probably going, who the heck is the Menendez brothers? Yet, the 90s Show is definitely targeting a younger audience, which is why, and I'm going to start a bit more in the negatives than the positives, which is why I don't know if this series has a good understanding of who's actually watching, because who was really excited for this and who was watching, I'm sure, the second it dropped, we're probably talking all of the fans of That 70s Show who aren't angry that they're bringing it back, those who are looking for those references, who are looking to see Red and Kitty one more time, and occasionally that cameo that's going to make you smile, going to make you cheer. And most of those audience members, well, they're older, yet you watch this and you're like, this is kind of a more of an adult version of a Disney show. There are even similar laugh tracks used that I've heard in Disney shows and Nickelodeon shows, and I thought at first this was filmed in front of a live audience, and that may have been the case, but then I listened to this, and occasionally they will play a track, and I'm like, oh, I've heard that laugh track before, but I thought it was in front of a live audience, so I guess they're just inserting where they need to insert. That's what she said. So, I mean, a little bit of an identity crisis. The focus is supposed to be on these young kids, and really, it is. They are the stars of the show. But my favorite parts of this show were when Red and Kitty, Kurtwood Smith, and Deborah Jo Rupp were on screen. The first episode, they are very prominent. They get less prominent as it goes along, but they're still there. They're still the caretakers of these kids, and the interactions, especially Red, it is so good to see Kurtwood Smith in this role again, and he hasn't lost his edge. I think he's lightened up just a bit. I feel like a lot of grandparents, the older they get, the more they're willing to maybe not be as harsh as they were, because it's not their kids, it's their grandkids. They can be a little more forgiving here and there. I've experienced that with my grandparents, because my grandpa, he's probably way less harsh on me than he was on my mom. But at the same time, Red still has that edge. I just love seeing that dynamic with he and his granddaughter. And Leia is an interesting character, right? She has this kind of this understanding of who she is back home, right? Not the popular kid. She's smart, probably, leader of the debate club, all of these things that they mentioned in the first episode. But she comes to this new town and she realizes, you know what? I can kind of fit in this new group, but they're allowing me to stretch my limits, push my boundaries. They're opening my world to maybe things that if I was a dad, I'd be like, your world's not going to be opened up to that. So yeah, I can put myself in Eric's shoes and be like, yeah, I understand your pain, brother. But at the same time, oh, and by the way, we'll talk about the cameos here in just a second. But at the same time, it's going off and doing something on your own, just for the summer, right? This is a temporary period of time, but she's making new friends. She's meeting new people, and the group, This is who we get to know. These are the new characters. But it is funny because each new character kind of feels similar to a character that we got in that 70s show, and I'm sure you'll figure that out as we watch. We have Gwen, we have Nikki, Nate, Jay, Ozzie, who I thought was a hilarious character, and each one falls into a similar trope of what we've seen before. They are trying to give us context as to who each person is, how each person operates. I didn't feel that connection as much as I did with the characters in that 70s show. And it is unfortunate. I don't think this is the acting at all, because I actually think the actors here are quite good. Oftentimes we get these laugh track shows on Netflix, and instead of the characters and the acting, the writing is the problem. And I'm not going to say the writing is tragic here. Let's compare it to a show that we got last year. Blockbuster. Not funny. Didn't really laugh all that often. Didn't really care about the characters. This isn't the case here. I actually think they do a good job with some of the storylines. Some of the jokes that go on too long, I wasn't quite as connected as maybe I needed to be to these young characters, but I do think the character actors do a nice job, and they allow us to see more cameos, more references, characters that we know and love from that 70s show. And I'm not going to say who. You've seen the trailers. You've seen the promos. You will know who comes in inevitably, and a few of them, they play more of a prominent role. I'm not even going to use the word cameo here, because most of the time when they come in, they're there for a fairly good period of time, so that's really cool to see. And I love the fact that anytime they're on screen, or anytime you're in one of those classic locations, and I'm talking the same camera angles, the same camera movements from that 70s show. Obviously, it's a series that's going to rely on some of that nostalgia to carry you through, and those are the moments, once again, that carried me through. That works extremely well, but once again, it's Red, it's Kitty. When they're on screen, you're just so happy. And really the dynamic with Leia. Again, Leia does a nice job. They try to create a bit of a romance there. At times, a love triangle. Jay plays a big part in that romance. And there are some other relationships that you explore. And I'm sitting back going, this is kind of where it feels maybe a bit more like a Disney show. Maybe to where it's appealing to a younger audience. But again, you're dealing with drugs and sex and some things that are going to be more adult. So it's more about this show finding an identity as it continues to evolve. Every show deals with this in the first season. Sometimes it gets off to a stronger start than this one, and I do believe there are some fairly weak elements of season 1 of that 90s show, but I do believe there are things here to work off of. Maybe a show that gets better, maybe one that stays stagnant, but I hope it continues to improve with future seasons. I'll say this, though, it's pretty easy binge, and anytime the intro kicks in, I'm like, oh, they're using the lyrics. Before I give you my score, if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know down below. Be sure to drop that thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. That would be cool. And let me know, what was your favorite character in that 70s show? I guess mine's Eric, because I don't know, I'm kind of a nerd myself. As expected, this series relies on a bit of nostalgia and certain appearances that do inevitably improve the viewing experience. This season struggles trying to figure out who the target audience is, but it sets the stage for a sequel series that could be special down the line. I am going a 62% with my score. Again, I thought this season was okay. I think it could be better in the future. Some characters I'm interested in and some things I want to see. But when it comes to recent shows in this vein with the laugh track, it is better than a lot of those. They just haven't really delivered a great one in a long time. Could this be it in the future? I'll see you guys soon.